Welcome to a special demonstration of College Raptor's College Match Tool. I'm Liz Robinson, and we're so excited that we have this opportunity to be an additional piece of your college search process. What an exciting time. Many of you are getting ready to prepare for the next chapter in you or your students' lives. And tonight, we're hoping to make that journey just a bit easier. Before we get started, I would like to remind you that at any time during our event, you have the ability to ask questions. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see there's a Q&A tab where you can type your specific question in. We will either answer your question on the spot or save it for the end of the presentation so our presenter can answer it live. Also, if you have any questions that are not related to the presentation, whether it be technical difficulties, comments, or other topics, please feel free to use the chat, also at the bottom of your screen, and our team will address you as soon as possible. We also will add some helpful links throughout the event. Okay, now let's get started. So it's my pleasure to introduce all of you to Jeff Pierpont, Vice President of College Raptor. Jeff has over a decade of experience partnering with colleges and universities to understand and solve challenges related to student recruitment, financial aid, marketing. He is also amazing at walking through the College Raptor tools and making great suggestions on how to prioritize and make key decisions when it comes to making a plan for college. Jeff, I'm going to ask you to turn your screen on, and I'm going to ask you to take it from here.
Sounds great. Thanks, Liz.
Sure thing.
Excellent. So, hey, everybody. My name is Jeff Pierpont. I am with College Raptor. I'm our vice president. So I'm going to walk you through the college search match tool we have on our site. It's a totally free tool. We hope you're using it already. And if you have, great. If not, certainly a great opportunity to learn more how it works. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to walk through the site a little bit, showing you how you can go ahead and create an account using basic information about yourself or your student. Looking at college match from the perspective of understanding the high school GPA, intended majors that the student may be considering, whether it would be a biology major or a chemistry major or, something like history or English or whatever, right? Location, where the student is, what kind of, campus they're looking to attend, as well as any sort of test scores as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and walk you guys through our platform. So I do that and I hit it there. And we're rolling. So you should now be seeing collegeraptor.com. So this is just our homepage. It's pretty self-explanatory where to go, but certainly happy to walk through and show you how this works. So a student or a parent can come through here and create a profile. The easiest way to do that in the college matching process, is one of the many things that you can do on our site, is to come here and say, find your college. When you do that, what's going to come up here on the screen is the ability for you to log in or create a new account. So let's pretend I don't have an account. Obviously I do, but I'll go ahead and say register, right? So if I go into register, I can do it, either using my Facebook account or a Google account, or by typing in some basic information. So my name, email address, my home address, city, state, zip, country, and then my password. Once I do that, I click the I'm not a robot button to tell everybody that I'm not just some sort of a bot, and then click register. And then once I do that, what will happen is I'll get an email sent to me that I'll have to click to verify who I am. Pretty standard procedure. So let's just go ahead and pretend that I'm doing that now, but instead actually we'll just sign in with my account. So I'll just go ahead and put in my email address. And then I will put in my password and hit sign in. Oh, apparently I don't know how to type my password, so let's try it again. There we go. So now I'm signed in. And now what's going to happen here is you're going to go ahead and you're going to select your user type. It'll be the first time you use it. It'll ask, who are you? Are you a student? Are you a parent or guardian? Maybe a high school counselor, or potentially some sort of other individual that would be involved in the process. So I'm just going to go in and pretend I'm a student. So I'll be a typical high school junior or senior or something. And I'll go ahead and do that. So I'll throw in a birthday here. Let's say my birthday is 10/12 2005. I think that's a reasonable year. And we'll pretend I am going to high school in my local town of New Brunswick, New Jersey. I'll just type it in and you'll see that the school will come up right here. So you can type in any high school in America and it should show up. If not, you can always select other if it doesn't show up on your screen. Then high school graduation year. So let's go ahead and say I'm going to graduate next year. I'll be a junior and I'll graduate in 2023. And then it's going to ask you if you would like to participate in the College Raptor match process, where we'll then share your contact information with matching colleges, or I'll enable you to connect with schools directly yourself. If you do not wish to do that, you can go ahead and say no, but I'll go ahead and leave it as yes. So I'll complete my registration, and then it's going to say, great, now what do you want to do? And so today we are doing the college match, so helping to find colleges using some basic information about the student here. So I'll go through and say college match. Now it's going to ask me a series of questions. There's 3 pages of questions here, nothing too serious, nothing too major. There's not a lot, I promise it's not hard. You come through and you go say, hey, how many colleges do you want to apply to? If you're considering, 10, which is a pretty typical number for students. Some will say higher, some will say no, or why not, I'll make it 15 just to be fun. What kind of degree am I looking for? The bachelor's degree is the default here. That would be your typical 4-year degree from most institutions. But certainly if you were looking for another degree, let's say you're looking for an associate's degree, maybe from a community or technical college, or even if you wanted to look at graduate programs, you could do that as well. But for this, demonstration, I'll just go ahead and be a traditional undergraduate student. Then majors. What do I want to study? Right? So let's go ahead and say I want to study biology. You start typing in an answer, and anything that has bio in it starts showing up, right? So I can just add everything. If I feel like, hey, I want to do anything with biology and show me all the schools that are related to that. Great, could do that. But I'll just go ahead and say general biology that has, 1,300 colleges or so. But, on top of that, I also want to major in history, right? Maybe that. So I'll go ahead and say I want to be, history as well, right? And I could pick specific history like European history or, military history, whatever. I'll go ahead and just select those 2 and see what comes up. I don't know. Then colleges you're interested in. So this is where you'd have a chance to say, hey, these are the schools I already know I want to apply to, or all the schools I'm interested in attending already without the match already. So I'll just go ahead and say, since it's a New Jersey student, I'll go ahead and say Rutgers, right? So right here in the town of New Brunswick, I'll add them to my list. If I wanted, I could add all of them, again, same concept. I could also look at a school that's all the way across the country. Maybe I want to look at UCLA as well. And note that you can sometimes type in rather easily, like the common acronym for a school like UCLA, and it'll show up as University of California, Los Angeles. So click on that, and then onward. Then we go over here, and I'll say, great, colleges to exclude. So there are any schools I know I don't want to go to. Maybe, I don't want to go to where my brother or sister went, or I know I'm, a big fan of, the Big Ten, but I hate Ohio State or something, right? I don't know why. I'm from Ohio originally, so I don't. But if you did, you can type it in and say, don't show me that one. So basically what's going to happen is it's just going to omit it from your list to make sure we don't, give you a school you don't want to attend. Then preferred college size. So if you want to go to a big school or a small school, if you pick one of these sizes, let's say I picked 1,000 to 4,999, it's not going to automatically omit a school that maybe has 950 students or a school that has 5,200 students. Right? It's not a hard filter that way. What it's doing there is it's saying, like, generally I prefer schools in this size, and the farther away you get from it, the less likely you're going to want to attend, right? So again, it's not a hard filter, but certainly if you had a preference in that way, you certainly can do it. So all the way up to the really big schools over 20,000. I'll leave it as no preference. Location, so either I want to be close to home, so schools that are within a good driving distance of my house, far from home, schools that are farther away, maybe on the other side of the country, or down deep in the South or something along those lines, or in-state. If I want to say, hey, I really want to look at these in-state schools because that's likely to be more affordable for me. It may or may not be, but certainly if that's a preference for you, again, you can select that. And then finally, city size. How big of a city do you want to be in? A really big city, 250,000 or more people, smaller cities, suburban areas, rural areas, you name it, you can select it. Again, I'm going to leave it as no preference to give myself lots of options. So I don't want to necessarily select based on that. So if I hit next, it's pretty simple. It's going to go on to basic information some more. So it's going to ask gender of the student. So I'll say I'm a male. Asking if the student is independent. This is often a question we'll get is, what does it mean to be independent? An independent student is one who takes care of themselves financially, or is in the military, maybe has their own child, they're married already. The most common answer to that is no. Most students, especially the ones looking at four-year undergraduate degrees coming straight from high school, they're not independent. They are known as dependent students. So pretty simple, pretty common, right? Zip code, I put in New Brunswick, New Jersey for my location. Again, it asked that high school where I typed it in earlier, high school graduation year. Then we get to the GPA question. So it's going to ask, what's my high school GPA? So if you're a student, let's say in high school, you'll have one of these, right? Or a recent graduate. But let's say you're using it for a younger student. Maybe it's a middle schooler or something. Well, you can put in a good estimate of what you think it might be or what it could be. You know, obviously it's going to be better if you have some real accurate information, and certainly you can put in different things and see how it works out as you play with the tool. You could also do a weighted GPA. So if you don't have a traditional 4.0 scale, rather you have a different scale, maybe it's out of 100. So maybe it's like New York State often has a lot of schools that are on 100 scale. So you could be on 93 out of 100 or something, right? Or if you have AP courses or things like that that get weighted, you could have them be a 4.2 out of 5 or something along those lines. So you'd put 4.2 and the maximum you could have would be 5. For the sake of this, I'll just make it simple. And let's say I have a 3.65 GPA. College entrance exams, obviously with test optional becoming more and more prevalent these days, this is something that you may just go ahead and say select none, and that's fine. You didn't take a test, you're not planning on it, great, that's fine. If you've already taken it and you wish to enter that information, certainly really helpful. So being that I said I lived in New Jersey, I'll go ahead and say my SAT score, because it's more common there to take an SAT than an ACT. I'll go ahead and say I got a 1200 on that. If I want, I can enter subscores, so that would be my math and my verbal score, so the two pieces that add up to the 1200. But I'll leave that for another day. Certainly, if you've done both tests, you can go ahead and select both. You can enter it that way, or the ACT, SAT. Pretty simple, pretty easy to do. That was part 2. Part 3 here. Now we're going to ask a little bit about the family situation and the finances of the family. So the first question we're going to ask them here is, how important is college cost to you when deciding your best fit? So some students may say, not at all. It doesn't matter. I don't care about cost. I just want to go to the school that's the best fit for me academically. It has the right kind of campus culture and experience. Fine, great. Just go to not at all. Don't worry about it. However, if you're like most people, including me when I was younger and my children here soon, it'll be somewhere between somewhat important or very important. So if you select either of these two options, it's going to then ask for some basic financial information. No, we're not going to get into the weeds here. But certainly we're trying to do this to enable to estimate your EFC, your expected family contribution. So that number is the number that is the result of the FAFSA. So when you fill out a financial aid form, the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, you go ahead and you put in your family's financial information, and it's going to say at the end, this is how much money your family should be able to pay for college. Now, is that number true? Certainly most families think that number is much higher than they can actually afford. But certainly, this is the kind of information we're trying to get at and able to understand your particular situation, both academically, which we've already done, and financially, meaning how is a college going to provide aid to you, whether it's through federal or state grants, or potentially institutional need-based aid as well. So it's important to understand and put in some financial information so you can see how the entire financial aid package looks like and how we can get you the best price at every institution. So I'll go ahead and say somewhat important, and then it'll ask how much information am I going to provide, whether it's none. I can say, hey, I don't know anything about my family's financial circumstances. And so what happens is we'll use some basic information about your family size, so how many people are in your family, how many are in college, what's your parents' marital status, as well as some information about where you live to make some estimates, because we know certain parts of the country have more wealth based on average incomes and things like that, and other places less so. And so we're trying to find where might you be if you can't provide any information. If you select known EFC, what's going to happen there is you can already just type in an EFC. Say I've already completed a FAFSA, or I've already filled out some estimators that's helping me understand that my EFC is going to be $12,242. Great. So you can just type that in. We know 12,242. Limited is the most common way we do this, and that's just asking some basic questions about income and assets. Again, nothing that's super in-depth or detailed there, but it should be pretty easy to fill out pretty quickly and have a good ballpark estimate. The last one is the full version, and if you select full, certainly can. It's going to ask you more or less every question you're going to experience when you go through things like the FAFSA or potentially the CSS profile, which is a different version of the FAFSA that some private and some public institutions use to help determine your need. Like I said, I'm going to select limited. It's the most common way. It's pretty basic, but yet it's still going to give you a great deal of accuracy with helping you estimate your EFC and then therefore your aid package. So we'll get in here, basic stuff, parents' marital status. My parents would say they were married, my parents were. They both had jobs. In my family, there were 6 of us. We were all US citizens, and when I was in college, there was 2 of us in college. Let's deal with that. Then we'll ask the parents' income. So here, let's go ahead and say my parents' income, family income was, I don't know, $95,000. They had some assets, maybe my parents had $15,000 of cash or stock or investments in some way. Students' total income, let's say I had a part-time job, and I made $3,500 a year. I think I selected that, maybe I didn't. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. But did I save any money? No, because I was a teenager and I was using all of my money, to go to prom and do fun things like that. So you can see here, my expected family contribution in this situation is $3,765. So the federal government says this family should be able to pay $3,765 for me to go to college, right? Certainly if I adjust any of these things, actually my parents didn't make $95,000, they made $115,000, right? Notice that my EFC, that number jumps up in real time there. So we're trying to give you as accurate of a picture of your financial circumstances, the way colleges think about it, through this tool. Importantly, we also ask this question that says, how much do you actually think you can pay out of pocket? So if you had to use your own savings or other money you have from maybe your grandma has saved some money for you to college or something like that, how much can you actually pay each year while you're in college? Maybe it's as much as the EFC, right? Maybe it's more. More often than not, most families say, I can't pay that much. There's no way we could. So let's instead say, $5,000 is what my family can pay. And then we're ready to find colleges. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to hit find colleges, this little orange button here, and up is going to pop up a list of the colleges that we think are a good fit for this student based on where they live, what their GPA was, test score if they had it, what kind of campuses they're looking for, as well as their financial circumstances. And so voila, here are our college matches, conveniently titled Your College Matches. So in here, we have a couple of views, right? So the default view that we're looking at right now is what we call the financial view. So the financial view is going to help you understand the affordability of this college for you, as well as some detailed information about how much debt you might need to incur, how much loans you're going to need to take out to pay for this education, as well as some information about your overall median starting salary from graduates from that program, as well as how well we think you match overall, means like on a 0 to 100 score, 100 being the best match, 0 being the worst, how good do we think that is for you? And then your acceptance odds. Acceptance odds information is really about how likely are you to be admitted based on the profile that we've seen. So, GPAs, test scores, things like that, to help understand that, because we have data from the college's historical admissions practices, what types of students they generally let in. Certainly having one that says 100% safety means you're very likely to get in. We have no doubt you'll be admitted. Whereas, here at, let's say Gettysburg College that shows up on the list, it's a 38% chance of being admitted based on my GPA and test scores. So we can dig around and play with that a little bit here in a second. So if we look at this list, the most important pieces are these 2 columns that I didn't mention, which are sticker price and net price. So the sticker price is the amount of money that college will say is their total cost of attendance. So what that means is not just tuition. So let's clear that up. So sticker price is the combination of your tuition and fees. So again, tuition as you think about. Housing and meals. So how much does it cost to live in campus housing and have a meal plan like you would traditionally do in college? Including things like books as well in there. Transportation. So how much is it going to cost for you to go back and forth to college? Assuming you're going to go there and stay for the semester or trimester or whatever the case may be, as well as any sort of personal expenses. So some basic spending money, some additional things you might need for computers and pens and stuff like that. All of that fits into the sticker price. Now, the estimated net price is the price that your family is going to be asked to pay after all grants and scholarships are included. So again, this would be federal aid, so things like Pell Grants, State grants, oftentimes there's lots of states that will provide additional subsidies, whether it's based on your family's financial circumstances, or sometimes a combination of finances and academics. Some states have, if you have certain GPAs or certain test scores, they'll give you additional aid for any college you want to attend, right? And then finally, the third piece on there is also institutional scholarships. So lots and lots of colleges provide merit scholarships based on your the GPA or your test score, or a combination of those things, maybe class rank as well. They might also do merit scholarships based on, did you take AP courses or, honors curriculum or things like that. They might also have merit scholarships tied to those pieces. And then they also provide institutional need-based grants oftentimes. And again, those are often looking at the family's financial circumstance, that EFC, that magic number that we have, that helps to, help them say, how much aid should they be able to provide to you in order to make this affordable, to make this work for you and your family. And so the estimated net price is really the number that matters most to you, because this is the amount of money you're going to need to come up with to pay to go to college there. Again, including all of those things: tuition fees, housing, meals, book supplies, transportation, personal expenses, all of that combined. This is how much we think it's actually going to cost for you to attend this school. So you can see on here, really quickly, easily here, Gettysburg College in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, great college, right? The sticker price, if you paid full price to go to the school, it'd be $73,200. But like most schools, I don't want to say hardly, it's often that students will receive, aid, whether it's merit aid, need-based aid, et cetera, to attend. And you can see here that Gettysburg College, for this student that I put in with a 3.65 GPA, a 1200 SAT from New Jersey, with around a $6,000, maybe $7,000 EFC, that number at the end of the FAFSA, is only going to be asked to pay $16,600. So you can see they're giving them, almost what, $57,000 in scholarships, grant scholarships combined, to make that much more affordable for that family. If you look at some other schools on here, you got Southern Virginia University in Buena Vista, is having a $17,000 net price. Syracuse up in New York, great school, right? Another one, Gettysburg as well, $18,728. So you can see how this sticker price, which oftentimes scares students and families away and say, hey, I can never afford to go to this school, it's too expensive, right? In reality, these are actually quite affordable. And in the same sort of vein, if you look, like Thomas Edison State University in New Jersey is only a few $1,000s less than going to, Syracuse, or very close to the same cost as going to Gettysburg College, right? So lots of times schools will make this much more affordable, and you can see that here. If we look at another view, which I think is important to do here, maybe the admission view. So here again, a lot of those same pieces are going to show up, things like the overall match, how well we think you're a match to that school. What is the average acceptance rate? So let's say here for, Rutgers here in New Brunswick, New Jersey, the big school, we think it's a 99 overall match. So a really good fit for that student. Their average acceptance is 67%. For us, we think that you're about a 58% chance of getting in based on your GPA and test scores, meaning you're slightly lower than the typical student they let in, but still well within reach. It's not like a big, scary thing to apply there. If we looked at, Gettysburg, they let in about 48% of their students, and you can see this student has about a 38% chance match. So you can see all sort of levels of that. Syracuse lets in 69%, 54% for the student, right? So you can see that. On top of it, you can see the median SAT score. So what's the typical SAT score of a student who enrolls there? As well as, the opportunity for me to say, note that it has a heart there because I said earlier I wanted to know more information about Rutgers. I put that on my list, so that heart gets put there. And if I want, I can put a heart next to other schools like Gettysburg here to say, hey, I'm interested in this school. I want to add that to my list of college options. Importantly, I can also, over here on the right, request information. If, let's say, I wanted to send them an email to say, hey, I want you to know who I am and information there, I hit a button. I can type it in, it pre-populates with your contact information. You can type in additional things in this comment field, hit request information. And what's going to happen is we're going to send an email on your behalf to Rutgers in this instance to say, hey, just so you know, Jeff's interested in going to college there. Make sure you add him to your communication list and engage with him. So that great tool, totally free, like I said, easy to use, simple. If a school you don't like, let's say, oh, I never want to go to Seton Hall for whatever reason, right? I can just click on the trash can icon there and then remove them from my list. They get taken off, right? So there's that. Last view up here I'll show is the academic view. So the academic view, again, is showing some really good information like the academic match, how well we think you're matched to that school, as well as the number of undergraduate students, student to faculty ratio, freshman retention rate. So what that's looking at is the number of students or the percentage of students that start their freshman year that come back to start the second year of college. So obviously the higher number there, the more likely your student's going to be successful because they're likely to have good support. They're likely to fit on campus. Most of the students here at, all these schools have pretty good retention rates that are showing up here, 85%, 93%, 91 at Yeshiva, 93 at Rutgers. These are great. You want to see really high numbers because again, that often indicates that the school has really good programs to engage those students and keep them motivated and enrolled. Another really good metric to look at here is the four-year graduation rate. So what is the percentage of students that start in their first year, their freshman year, that finish their degree within 4 years? So again, some really high numbers here, at SUNY College of Geneseo at 69%, or 75 at College of New Jersey. Somewhere like Ursinus here at 71, still really good numbers. So you can see there's usually some variation there over time. Distance is how far that school is from the house, the address that you put in, the zip code you've entered. And I believe that's as the crow flies as opposed to driving. So unfortunately, it's 235 miles to do that. Again, option to save, request information, things like that. So great. So got one question that's come in here. I want to make sure I address it here before I move on, is go back to that financial view that says, how accurate are our net price estimates and where do we come from? How do we know all of that information? So great question. Let me explain that a little bit here. So number one, the sticker price we know directly from the college. They publish their cost of attendance information. It's pretty readily available. So that information straight from the schools, right? The estimated net price. Well, what makes us special and unique at College Raptor is a couple things. First and foremost, we work with about 250 colleges throughout the country. So for those schools, we often build their net price calculator, or the tool that enables prospective students to go out and estimate their personalized net price. Again, this number here. So for those 250 schools, which range from really big state schools to small privates and everybody in between, we have exact cost of awarding information, or cost of attendance information, as well as their awarding logic. So we know how they do their merit scholarships. We know how they do their need-based aid. They tell us, we build it, and then it's built and it goes on their website. So for those schools, we're using the exact same information to help give the most accurate information. For the other schools, because certainly there's more than 250, what's going to happen is we're going to look at what they publish on their website. We're going to look at what they put in federal data that they have to submit every year to the Department of Education through a thing called iPads. And we're going to look at their net price calculator as well. And then we're going to use some of our smarts to say, hey, we know how College A works. College B, who we don't work with, probably works the same kind of way. So we're going to use some of our artificial intelligence to fill in those gaps and make that as accurate as we can. And so generally speaking, we're pretty darn close with all of these estimates, but at the same time, what I recommend is not to trust us and say, hey, this is the absolute certain number. We're not telling anybody that. Rather, we say, this is what we think it is. We're usually really close within the right ballpark, but certainly we recommend, if it's a school that you're interested in, contact the school, get on their list, go for a visit, talk to them, use their net price calculator on their website. If you get that far in the process, you'll get an award letter from them that'll tell you exactly what that is. And then that's going to be the best thing. Really, the way I think about these net price estimates, while I think they're incredibly accurate, they are really close, are really meant to give you in the right ballpark, right? Is where we want to say, hey, like I said earlier, Syracuse at $71,000 here. If it's going to cost your family, $50,000 less to go there, now that might be a realistic option for you to consider. Where if you only knew that 70,000 number, I know I wouldn't have considered it. I didn't go there, but I wouldn't think my kids could go there. There's no way my family could make that happen. But at 18, that becomes much more palatable to so many more people. And so that's the importance of understanding that difference and understanding where we're getting that data from. So with that, I'm at about a half an hour. I could certainly spend lots and lots of time going through all of this and doing many more things, whether it's to researching individual campuses and all the detail we have on those, walking through our scholarship finder, or how to, pick a college based on your intended major or your career finder, to, all sorts of details about student loans and everything else. But I will save that for another day, because I know we have a lot more of these planned here in the next couple weeks and months. So with that, I will turn it back to Liz and say, Liz, are there any questions, anything else I should do in here?
Only if I can get myself off mute, Jeff.
That's great.
So I think we have a couple of other questions, and I'll ask you this one. One of our participants is asking, if I have a weighted GPA, what should I put in as the maximum GPA?
Great question. So if I go back and I look at that, let me go back to that section just to show everybody how that is and where that works. The idea behind the GPA is this. So in here, if I edit it and I say it's a weighted GPA, it's going to be the GPA that the student has out of the best possible GPA they could possibly have given their specific curriculum. So let's imagine I took 10 classes, right? And 9 of them were all on a 4.0 scale, but 1 of them was on a 5.0 scale, right? I wouldn't want to put my GPA to say my GPA was a 3.8 out of 5, because only one of those classes was on a 5-point scale. So rather, the best GPA I could possibly have if I got a 4, 4, 4, 4, 4 9 times, and then a 5 out of 5 on that one would be a 4.1 out of 4.1. So that's the way I'd want to say you'd have a 3.85 out of 4.1. Right? Not out of 4.5 or 5.0, right? It's not the highest one class has, but it's the best possible GPA that student could have had given their specific course load.
In that particular case, could they use the school's valedictorian as kind of an idea for the weighting?
It depends, again, depending on what their course load is versus their valedictorian. So if they took the exact same courses as that valedictorian, yeah, potentially, if that student got all A's on everything and that. But if they had a different regimen of classes where maybe the valedictorian took 4 classes that were on a 5.0 scale, whereas that student only took 1, right? They're going to have a different maximum GPA.
Perfect. Next question. And I know this is a big one, especially from the period of time that we've been going through with COVID. So if test scores are not required, should I take the ACT or SAT?
Great question. I think that really is going to depend on the student in each individual case. I know certainly that many schools across the country, whether it's basically the entire west coast of the United States, has made all of their public institutions, go test optional or not even asking for test scores, as well as, many of the elites. Even Harvard, just a couple of weeks ago, announced that it's going to be test optional, at least for the next few years. So I think it depends on the student. Are there other opportunities that there might be available for scholarships? Certainly that's a possibility. I know there are lots of private scholarships, and the way schools consider merit scholarships are often different for a student who submits test scores and those that do not. So if you feel like you'll do well on them, I think it couldn't hurt to take it. And then if you have good scores, certainly submitting those to the scholarships and submitting them to the colleges that you're interested in attending could potentially improve your odds of getting in, and then maximizing the $8 you would be eligible to receive. So I often suggest it's a good thing to do, but I don't want to say blanket you should or you shouldn't. It's going to be based on that student's unique circumstances.
I don't know if my son's going to have more opportunity for merit scholarships. I'm making him take the ACTs and SATs anyway.
Sure. I mean, I for my own children, I think that's likely the path I will go, but I am not certain at this point.
Well, Jeff, I have to say you have done an absolutely fantastic job. I want to do one more round to see if anyone in the audience has any questions, and I'll give you a chance to put that in the Q&A. But I did want to tap into, Jeff, what you said is We're going to have more of these demos coming up within the coming months on some of our other tools. And you very nicely, went up to the top of the page and showed where people can find some of those tools. Right on our homepage is a great place to look and to basically test out, what kind of career do you want? I think one of our favorite tools is this Compare Financial Aid Office offers, and that is something that is definitely coming up. So fantastic job. I'm not seeing any more questions, but let me do this. I'm going to share my screen now, Jeff.
Sure.
And basically let people know how they can reach us. So if you have any follow-up questions for us, don't even hesitate to type help@collegeraptor.com. We'll be there to assist you. And also, if you follow us on social media, so Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, we're talking about a number of different things over the next coming months that I think are going to be helpful to all of you. And I just heard that we have one more question. Let me just see if I can see it.
Sure, I can see it there, Liz.
You can? Great.
So yeah, great question. So it's asking if we can automate the maximum GPA based on the students' number of weighted courses. The answer to that is sort of no. Hypothetically, we could come up with a calculator to help with that. But really, it would depend on a couple of factors. One, how many potential courses did that student take overall? Was it 10? Was it 20? How many classes were there? Number two, how many were weighted? And number three, what was the weighting for each course? So I know, for example, in my high school, back many moons ago, we had courses that were some were on a 5.0 scale, some were on a 4.5 scale, and some were on a 4.0 scale. So we would need to know the weighting of every individual course to do that. And so, certainly it's something that could be calculated relatively easily, but unfortunately it's not something that could just be automated based on saying, hey, I've taken one weighted course or something like that. It depends on the weighting of the course and then the quantity of them over the entire duration of that student's high school experience.
And I can only imagine that some schools give A's out a little bit easier than other schools as well. So it's not always so straightforward, meaning grade inflation.
Certainly is a challenge, especially in a test optional world for colleges to determine, admissions and, merit scholarships and all the like, with that also coming into play. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to thank everybody in our audience. I think we've answered the questions, and hopefully everyone will join us again next month when we highlight one of our other tools. I'll keep it a secret for now, but pay attention, and thank you so much for joining. Thanks, Jeff. Fantastic job.
Thank you. Bye-bye.